This is a condensed version of a longer Sunday talk I gave at the Vedanta Temple in Santa Barbara, California, several years ago. I'm sharing it because I believe it may be interesting for those who have seen statues and images of Ganesha and may be unaware of the universal spiritual principles he represents. Plus, I admit that I've had a fondness for this hefty facet of the full diamond that is God since I first came across him. Ganesha has been worshipped for thousands of years. His special annual worship, known as Ganesha Chaturthi, lasts for 10 days. And on the 10th day, the statues and images that have been created in his honor are immersed in nearby bodies of water. This ritual is similar to the destruction of those incredibly intricate and beautiful sand mandalas that Tibetan Buddhist monks painstakingly create. And so, after Ganesha has been properly propitiated and adored, the representations are destroyed without attachment and with the confidence that the prayers have been heard and everyday life will move on in a more blessed and spiritually focused manner. I was in South India once during this celebration and marveled at the ornate depictions of Ganesha and the festive spirit I experienced everywhere I went. Ancient statues and images of Ganesha have been found in India, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Burma, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Nepal, Tibet, China, Japan, Malaysia, and even in parts of Europe and Central America. Over the years, he has been shown standing, sitting, dancing, playing as an elephant child, and riding on his vehicle. Stories about him are mostly found in Hindu scriptures, known as the Puranas, but they are also in the scriptures of the Jains and the Buddhists. The Puranas are far-reaching. They discuss philosophy, cosmology, geography, and describe the lives and adventures of kings, sages, gods, and demigods, or semi-divine beings, which in the West are similar to angels with special assignments, like Archangel Michael and the angel Gabriel. Some texts mention that Ganesha was born with his elephant head, but in most, it is told that he acquired this head after a critical misunderstanding between him and his father, Lord Shiva. As I understand it, the story is that Shiva had to go somewhere to fight evil and told Ganesha, his elder son, to guard the entry to the home and see that no one brought harm to his mother, Parvati. To test his son's resolve, Shiva showed up in a disguise and tried to enter their home. Recalling a command of his father, Ganesha refused entry. And even when Shiva revealed himself, Ganesha thought that it might be a trick being played on him by some mischievous god. And so he continued to stubbornly refuse. The story goes that after lots of back and forth, Shiva finally lost his patience, and using his trident, he cut off his son's head. Parvati, seeing her firstborn son without a head, understandably went ballistic, as any mother would, and appealed to Shiva to do something about it. So to soothe her anguish, Shiva replaced Ganesha's original head with that of an elephant. And for good measure and a bit of balance, he added a fat and protruding stomach. So, what is the meaning behind this story about Ganesha's elephant head? Well, there are many meanings, but to cut to the chase, elephants are known for their strength and intelligence. And so Ganesha's elephantine head symbolizes his overwhelming power and his superior intelligence. Like deities from most faiths, including Christianity, Ganesha has many names, and these deities and their names signify or emphasize certain qualities and characteristics. Let's take the case of Ganesha's father, Lord Shiva. Shiva is variously referred to as Shankara, Shambho, Maheshvara, Rudra, Nataraja, Triambakam, Sadashiva, and others. I won't go into it here, but each of these names emphasizes one or more divine qualities or roles that Shiva plays. So Ganesha's many names also emphasize different aspects of his glory. The name Ganesha is a Sanskrit word comprised of Gana and Isha. Gana means group or multitude, and in this case, a group of demigods or semi-divine beings. And Isha means Lord or Master. So Ganesha means Lord of the Ganas, or Lord of the multitudes. Now, just as a quick aside, it is interesting that in the Tibetan language, the name used for Jesus Christ is Isa or Isha, and this is to acknowledge their regard for Jesus as Lord, yet in this case, the highest Lord, with a capital L. Now, another familiar name for Ganesha is Ganapati. Ganapati is comprised of Gana, again meaning group or multitude, and Pati, meaning ruler or lord, just like Isha in the name Ganesha. So both Ganesha and Ganapati refer to ruler or lord of the multitudes. He is also called Ganapati because he is known for his superlative intelligence, which allows him to control and rule over the semi-divine beings. Here is an amusing story in the Ganesha Purana about Ganapati in connection to this attribute of great intelligence. One day, Shiva challenged his two sons, Ganapati and Subramaniam, who also goes by the name Skanda, to compete in a race around the world. He told them that whoever made it back first would receive a special prize. Subramaniam hopped on his peacock, and like the rabbit in the story about his race with the tortoise, he set off at an incredible speed. In the meanwhile, Ganesha, or Ganapati, sat still and seemed totally unconcerned about the impending loss to his brother. Seeing Ganesha just kicking back and cooling out, his parents asked him why he had not yet begun the race. They encouraged him to rise up and get moving. But Ganapati was eating and continued to sit there and eat to his heart's and stomach's content. A little while later, Ganapati looked towards the horizon and saw that his brother was fast approaching. So finally, Ganapati mounted his own vehicle and began to circumambulate his parents. After walking around them just once, he sat back down and said that he had gone around the world. Surprised by what he had said, his mother Parvati asked him, "Without actually going around the world, how can you claim you have done so, merely by walking around us?" Ganapati cleverly replied, This entire earth is permeated by my omnipresent parents. So if I go around you, it is the same as going around the whole world. Shiva was delighted by his son's intelligence, declared him the winner, and presented him with the trophy of a celestial fruit, as if he needed more to eat. Among other symbols and teachings I won't go into, this story is meant to encourage us to arouse the latent intelligence that lies within each of us and to comport ourselves in the range and ways that will help us to do so. Now, when considering Ganapati and other Hindu representations of God, discussions about their vehicles often comes in. Vehicles are symbolic and represent our values, our norms, and the modes and manner through which we move through our lives. Ganapati's vehicle is the mouse, and in most authentic depictions, you will almost always see him with a mouse at his feet or somewhere nearby. You can see it in this image, yet in many of those I'm showing, you may not. Now, this mouse is interpreted in several ways, but in relation to Ganesha's elephant head, which represents his knowledge of the macrocosm, the mouse suggests that he is also fully knowledgeable about the microcosm. So in addition to his overwhelming intelligence, he also has a lively, sort of stealth-like knowledge that gives him the capacity to know what needs to be known in even the most secret and smallest of places. Now, if we move on to yet another name for Ganesha, you'll see even more symbolism. This name is Vinayaka. Vinayaka has the most familiar meaning that is ascribed to Ganesha. Vinayaka means one who removes the obstacles. He is the Isha, or Lord of obstacles. By revering Ganesha as Vinayaka, we attempt to achieve purity and harmony within our own body, mind, and spirit. Whoever maintains good intentions and places a limit on too many worldly expectations and desires, even in a relative sense, is also relatively free of worry and anxiety. So whenever and wherever you see him, Vinayaka never appears out of sorts. He is not weighed down by depression or anxiety. He doesn't anticipate a negative future that has yet to arrive. He is always calm and tranquil. He never goes to the doctor to ask for medicines to reduce complications due to stress. That he himself is Dr. Feelgood. This representation of Vinayaka applies to all of us. And it enjoins us to maintain a strong and solid composure, no matter the ups and downs or obstacles we may face. He is telling us, don't worry, be happy, I've got you. Vinayaka is always placed in front, both metaphorically and practically. He is invoked at the beginning of important activities and is even sometimes referred to as the Lord of Beginnings. He is placed at the doorway of many Hindu temples and at the entries to homes. This is similar to the role he played in guarding the entry to the family home while Shiva was away. When a sequence of hymns is sung in the Hindu tradition, they always begin by first singing a hymn in praise of Ganesha in his role as Vinayaka, the remover of obstacles. The significance of placing him in the forefront is simple. When an elephant decides it wants to go somewhere, no one can stop it. And as it moves through the forest, all the obstacles in its path are removed, and thus it clears the way for others to follow. Similarly, by invoking Vinayaka, the path can be cleared for all of our positive endeavors and undertakings. And finally, on a much higher esoteric level, yeah, it can get pretty deep. The name Vinayaka also suggests spiritual leadership. In the world of Kundalini Yoga, Ganesha resides in the first of the 7 chakras. Chakras are progressive spiritual energy centers that, once awakened, will eventually lead us to spiritual enlightenment. This first one is referred to as the Muladhara chakra. Mula means original or main, and Adhara means base or foundation. The Muladhara chakra is at the base of the spine and is the place from which spiritual energy arises and moves through the other 6 chakras to the Sahasrara, or crown chakra on the top of the head. So it is the power and intelligence of Vinayaka that initiates the charge to spiritual liberation from his position in the base chakra. He is the one who helps remove obstacles along the way, and in effect, leads us through all the other chakras to nirvana, or our ultimate union with God. The final name I will briefly describe for Ganesha is Gajanana, and this is where his elephant form comes in. Gaja means elephant, and the second half of Gajana refers to his Vadana, his countenance, or in this case, his face. So by this name, Ganesha is referred to as one who has the face of an elephant. In more general terms, and in the breadth and depth of meaning that the Sanskrit language provides, Gajanana goes beyond his attributes of strength, intellect, and spiritual leadership, and suggests a wider range of qualities that also include abundance, boldness, wisdom, and royalty. Well, there are many other serious and playful names for Ganesha. In fact, as in the case of many Hindu deities, Ganesha has 108 names that describe his wide range of attributes and associations. I have them right here, right now. But why bother to list them all? Now, before I begin to wrap up, close out, and reassess my own relationship with the symbols and principles I have been espousing, I'd like to explain the symbolism of various aspects of Ganesha's form. As always, there are different interpretations, and he is sometimes shown holding different objects in his hands. But I am confident that those I will suggest are fully valid and sufficient for our purposes. For example, his small mouth suggests that we should speak less. His single tusk suggests that we should discard the negative and accentuate the positive. His large ears, that we should carefully listen to our inner voice of conscience. His large head, that we should think big. The axe he often carries suggests that we should cut the bonds of illusion and attachment. His 4 arms and hands represent the 4 inner attributes of our subtle body, the mind, the intellect, the ego, and our conditioned or worldly influenced conscience. The rope he often carries signifies that he is always ready to draw his devotees near to him. The lotus flower is always a sign of devotion. Sweets or fruit in his hand represents the fruits of good actions. His raised hand with his open palm is his blessing. And the trident or trishul on his forehead, when shown, is a sign of his mastery of the three divisions of time, past, present, and future. All of these are pretty heavy and quite fantastic. There are more, but this is surely enough. Now, I should mention that the spiritual symbols and portrayals of Ganesha's mythological father, Lord Shiva, are even more magnificent. But more on that will have to wait for another time. The entire universe is a symbol, and so is everything in it. So when we penetrate the meaning and the higher principles behind all this appearance and align with the way that unfolds, we will surely experience less worry about the world and more inner peace, self-assurance, and self-satisfaction. Ganesha Chaturthi, like the holy days and commemorations of all traditions, are intended to remind us of the higher truths and sacred realities, to refine, elevate, and expand our minds and help us live courageous, optimistic, and useful moral lives. And yes, Ganesha truly is universal, a deity for all, a fun deity of infinite energy, power, and intelligence. But again, let's not forget that all the deities of all faiths, including Ganesha, are intended to represent facets or special characteristics of the one omnipresent, indivisible divine. Just a little bit of research on any search engine will reveal more wisdom, more lore, more images and videos of Ganesha than anyone would ever need or even want. But the important thing is always to get to the essence, to get to the kernel, to the heart of the matter, so we can suss out the meaning for our own understanding and inspiration, to live a calm, confident, and steady life. In closing, here is a nice figure of Ganesha that sits in our home. It is one of several we have, including one you can see when you first enter our front door. And so, let's reflect on the spiritual principles associated with Ganesha and his various names, and quietly engage in processes that will grow our own innate intelligence and clear whatever obstacles there may be to our own boundless spiritual potential. Thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.